I love old fashions, but admittedly became quite the snob for the proper way to make them, aka the crafty, quiet, simple old fashioned that we know and love. Even though it's an incredibly common drink, you'll still be hard pressed to get a consistent version of the old fashioned if you go from establishment to establishment. And part of the reason for that is because of this drink, the Wisconsin Old Fashioned. It's likely that the simple whiskey, bitters, sugar version came first, but when it morphed into muddled fruit, it became incredibly in fashion for decades. It was still the standard way of making the cocktail when I first got behind the bar. So let's chat about the history of the drink, and let's make a couple. Welcome to the Cigar Bar. Now, we're calling this the Wisconsin Old Fashioned because we're not in Wisconsin. Unless you are in Wisconsin right now, where they simply call it an Old Fashioned or a brandy Old Fashioned. The reason for the Wisconsin denotation is thanks to the immense popularity of brandy in the state, and yet the story of the Wisconsin Old Fashioned seems to carry with it more than one explanation. On the one hand, brandy became extremely popular in the late 1800s amongst the German and Polish populations that made up much of the state, most of whom would be much more used to enjoying brandy over whiskey. However, during and post-Prohibition, as the quality of spirits dwindled, additives such as bitters, sugar, and fruit were used to make their swill more palatable. And after a huge store of brandy was discovered by local liquor distributors in Wisconsin in the 50s, brandy rose back into the ranks of Wisconsin's chosen spirit, where it remains today. To keep things interesting, Wisconsinites love their brandy old fashions, made in a variety of ways, but we'll cover that in a bit. First, let's make one. For the Wisconsin Old Fashioned, you will need brandy, and in this case, we're going to use Christian Brothers. You'll also need Angostura bitters, an orange, maraschino cherries, and for this we have Luxardo cherries, simple syrup or a sugar cube, and soda water. In your rocks glass, add half an orange wheel, 1 cherry, a 1/4 ounce of simple syrup, and 4 dashes of bitters. Muddle it all together till you have a nice mixture, but be careful not to muddle the orange rind too much or at all so as not to create any bitterness. Add 2 ounces of brandy and stir just a bit, and add crushed ice to the glass. Top with a splash of soda and garnish with a cherry and an orange. And there you have it, the Wisconsin Brandy Old Fashioned. Now there are 4, count them 4, ways of finishing your brandy Old Fashioned. The first is called soda, which is how we just made it, finished with club soda. The second is called press, finished with half soda and half Sprite. And third is sweet, made with Sprite. And finally sour, finishing your Old Fashioned with delicious squirt, which, if I'm being honest, I didn't even think existed anymore. But I'd like to make one of these sour versions with a couple of twists, so let's do it. For this version, we'll use bourbon instead of brandy because we're going to be adding this, Fever Tree Sparkling Grapefruit. And I love the flavors of bourbon and grapefruit together. So, as before, muddle the cherry and bitters together, but this time we'll use a wedge of grapefruit. So add a half an ounce of simple syrup to help with the sourness of the grapefruit. Add 2 ounces of bourbon, in this case we're using Baker's Single Barrel. Top with crushed ice and grapefruit soda, and garnish with a grapefruit peel. And fun fact, this recipe is incredibly delicious with tequila as well. And there you have it, the Sour Grapefruit Old Fashioned. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode all about the brandy Old Fashioned and feel inspired to make one on your own. Thank you to everyone who have subscribed already. I'm very grateful for you all. And with that, thank you for visiting the Cigar Bar, and we'll see you on the next one.